in April and May.
It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages. Nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, good afternoon, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on WCRN Radio Central, AM 830. I am Joe Mangiacotti, and you can join the conversation over the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Get you into the studio for two-way talk and conversation today. Behind the glass flying the board today, he'll get you set up and into the conversation. And you can also do that by texting. Our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. It appears on the screen here in real time. We'll try to work it into the conversation. The station does stream 24/7 on the TuneIn app, which is pretty cool, because that means you can take us anywhere from terrestrial in your car radio, on your device. You don't have to miss anything. And, of course, we have the WCRN replay link at WCRNradio.com. Now, I do stream my show on multiple platforms, Facebook, Twitter, basically the social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and we do stream live to the Rumble channel. And, of course, the show is turned into a podcast once I get off the air, so you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, etc. You know the culprits there. So from the center of the dial in the center of New England and the center of information, this is the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Common Sense, conversation for the common sense citizen. And we've got a lot to talk about, as we always do. It's just an hour a day. We got a lot to fit in, and it's what are we going to talk about? I enjoyed having Jennifer Say on yesterday. She was a very good interview, a very smart, articulate lady. And look at the cost that she had. And I'm not talking about this, her take on COVID when it was the schools being shut down and trying to get kids who were the healthiest among us, and not one child's life was lost during COVID. It really affected, as we know, elderly or preconditions. Those were the people we had to take care of. And I think we really did do more damage locking the schools down for as long as we did than it was the squeeze juice thing there going on. So we've got a lot on the table today. Some of it predictable, some of it, frankly, jaw-dropping, but it all deserves a good old-fashioned dose of common sense here. Now, the Democratic Party, or at least a loud and restless part of it, is once again eating its own. We see that across all levels, I think, right now, guys, on the Democratic Party. So now, if you haven't heard, David Hogg, yes, that David Hogg, the 25-year-old Parkland survivor turned activist, who's somehow now the vice chair of the DNC. He's actively working to primary sitting Democratic House members in 2026. His group, Leaders We Deserve, which honestly sounds more like a college poetry club than a political machine, is pledging, get this, guys, $20 million to challenge entrenched Democrats in what would be considered safe blue districts. Now, let's not forget that AOC did knock out a very entrenched Democrat. I mean, a Democrat whose name was being thrown around as speaker even. And she came in with her social media and her very progressive views and was able to unseat this Democrat. Now Hogg is saying, well, I think we got to get rid of the dinosaurs, the old school here. And if he's successful, the Democratic Party will even go further left than it is now, if you can imagine that. But even if you have not heard of David Hogg, he's there. He ended up as the vice chair. I mean, how does that even happen? Let that sink in. The vice chair of the DNC is funding attacks on Democrats. So look, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't mind watching the left implode. Who doesn't love a good circular firing squad here, guys? But this isn't just political infighting. This is generational warfare going on. This is ideological purification in their view. Hogg's not going after purple districts, not after the moderates. He's not trying to flip seats red to blue. No. He's targeting his own side. He wants to get rid of those that he thinks are just outdated with the party because they might be a little more, moderate or centrist for him. So the ones who aren't progressive enough for his tastes. Why? Because in his words, too many Democrats are asleep at the wheel, out of touch and ineffective. Now, I'd agree with him if we were talking about Joe Biden's presidency. But it's not that. He's talking about fellow progressives who just aren't progressive enough. And folks, this isn't just a strategy problem. It's a worldview problem. This is what happens when politics becomes about activism rather than governance, when emotion outweighs experience, when ideology trumps logic. Ted, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, this reads just like Berlin, 1939.
Again, there's a lot of similarities we can draw there. I've talked about that before. You see Antifa with masked up, all in the same uniform and smashing windows. If you look at history, it reminds me of the night of the Crystal Knock, when they took all the Jewish storefronts out and broke all the Jew windows. There's too many. It's too organized. And now that we've got Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, I think they should really be following the money in these things, because we've seen the video. If you haven't, it's there, guys. I've posted it. You can go find it at the Summer of Love and some of these protests. They would all show up, being bussed in and brought in. Some of them staying at hotels. So I'd like to know who paid for the hotels, where that was reimbursed. But the point is, there'd be a U-Haul already parked there, and it would have the ready-made signs all set to go. And then they'd have frozen bottles of water and other things for projectiles. That's organized, and that's finance. So, this reminds me of the old saying, the revolution eats its own. And make no mistake, that's exactly what we're watching right now. And speaking of progressive darlings and ideological purists, guess who Nate Silver, the so-called data wizard, says is the front runner for the 2028 Democratic presidential ticket. And it's not Gavin Newsom. It's not even Kamala Harris, although she's still hanging around like a guest who won't leave the party. And it's not even Josh Shapiro, the moderate governor from Pennsylvania, who just was attacked with a firebomb to the governor's mansion while him and his family were asleep. I absolutely is disgusted with that. And the fact that he spoke out on it. But the problem is we have elected leaders and prominent people on the left who haven't spoke out against the attacks on Tesla car owners, which like 95% of them, if they bought them more than a year ago, are probably Democrats who own them. The whole electric car, and especially Tesla, was really driven by the left, and chances are they're probably a registered Democrat. But according to Silver, in his sidekick over on Substack, the number one draft pick for 2028 is, and wait for this, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC. That's right, AOC. The congresswoman from Twitter, the queen of hashtag revolution, the woman who brought us the Green New Deal, supported defunding the police, and once live streamed her cooking dinner while explaining modern monetary theory. She was nowhere near on target, but she attempted it. Remember, this is the woman who thinks the three branches of government are Senate, House, and President. I watched her refer to that once in an interview and couldn't believe that this is a sitting member of Congress. So incorrectly, she did the monetary theory, I might add. Ted, you wanted to add?
Yeah, she's also the one that scuttled the Amazon deal.
And she blew that out of the water, costing thousands of jobs to her district. Now, let me be clear. AOC, she has charisma. She's savvy. She knows how to manipulate media and mobilize young voters, but presidential material, that's a whole different ballgame. And I believe she just turned old enough technically to be, she just turned 35. So she can actually be president. Silver says she has broad appeal and fervent support. And sure, among specific slice of the Democratic base, she does. But let's not confuse Twitter popularity with national electability. You don't win the White House in TikTok videos and Occupy Wall Street vibes. But
it smells a lot like Coppertone and desperation to me.
And so, look, she's not the neophyte anymore. She's been there a while. I know everybody keeps thinking of her because she's so young as this new, but she's been there a few terms. And if she is the best they've got, well, folks, I like our chances in 2028 then, I guess I'd say. But it speaks volumes about where the Democratic Party is headed. They're not moving center. They're not regrouping after their losses of 2024. They're doubling down. They're radicalizing. They're treating elections like activist rallies instead of reality checks. It's why their messaging is collapsing. It's why their base is splintering. It's why Americans are tuning out. And we saw it last year. Democrats lost badly because they underestimated voters. And quite frankly, a lot of Democrats despise middle America. They focused on niche issues, identity obsessions, virtue signals, while ignoring the core concerns of everyday Americans: economy, security, freedom, competence, merit. So now the far left thinks the answer is more of the same, just louder, just younger. And that, my friends, is the gift that keeps on giving. Now, don't worry, we've got more coming up. We'll talk about the latest from the Letitia James debacle. This is crazy. And how the weaponization of law enforcement is backfiring spectacularly. Plus, we're going to look at what's going on overseas with the UK's High Court ruling that may redefine womanhood and reality. We'll also open the lines for your calls at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. You can always message on Facebook or just text at the 617-297-8388 number, 617-297-8388. The screen's in the studio in real time. So stick with us, folks. We're going to take our first break here on the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. And we'll go right to the phones when we come back. And that will be in 2 minutes, 10 seconds, folks.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
WCRN, where the left and the right meet in the middle. Whether you lean left, lean right, or just want to stay informed, WCRN has you covered with diverse voices, lively debates, and thought-provoking discussions. You'll hear it all right here. Radio Central.
Building AI Boston is a tech talk for everyone. Listen in to find out why you belong in the conversations shaping our future every Thursday morning, 10:30 Eastern Time on Radio Central AM 830 WCRN.
The best Italian cuisine served by some of the nicest folks you'll ever meet is at Ziti's Italian Trattoria. It's fine Italian cooking at the Speedway Shopping Center, 290 Turnpike Road in Westboro. It's like sitting down with your family for an authentic home-cooked Italian meal. From intimate dinners to catering for events of all sizes, from pizzas and calzones to classic Italian dinners, every meal at Ziti's is one you'll remember. Head on down to ZD's, 290 Turnpike Road in Westboro.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second segment here in the Thursday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000. You can do that for the remainder of the hours. As a matter of fact, let's go to the phones. Mark has been waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
What's the news this afternoon? Channel 4 all the way to Channel 25, Boston fake news. Very fake news. So I click from one to the other. Letitia James facing investigation by the United States Justice Department for allegedly engaging in mortgage fraud and real estate, other types of shenanigans. Yeah, nothing, absolutely nothing about that story. And I'm going to tell you something. If this story is true, this is one of the biggest stories since Watergate. Nothing. They spiked the story, never even reported it. Disgraceful.
It is disgraceful. And I'm sure there's people in the left, in the main, what we call legacy or mainstream media, who are saying, we don't know how the hell to cover it, so let's just not cover it, because, boy, did we buy in and we went hard when she kind of made up these charges and ignored statute of limitations. And there was no victim, by the way, with Trump, right? He took these loans out.
Crimes. Yeah, victimless crimes.
Absolutely. In this case here, and just so our listeners know, Mark, because they might not be up on this, basically she in 2023, she did the application and paperwork for a property in Virginia, where she said, under the pains and penalty of perjury, signing this application, that she lived in Virginia. Now, she's the sitting attorney general of the state of New York, which A, requires you to live in New York to hold that position. But B, by saying that, there is actually a theft going on, because your mortgage rate will change if it's owner occupied. So this was a complete fraud and scam that she did there. Then she had a Brooklyn property that she put down that it was 4 units when it was actually 5. Well, what's the big deal, Joe? So what? Well, a couple things. One is, when you cross the threshold in real estate from 4 to 5 units, you start to change the type of mortgage. It's more of a commercial real estate loan opposed to an owner-occupied type loan. Plus, your insurance drastically changes when you go to 5+ units, because it is a commercial endeavor. That's just the way real estate, everybody plays by those rules. And then if you go back a long time ago, I guess they started looking into it, and she actually co-signed a loan for a property with her father, who she identified as her brother, for the purposes of pretending that this was going to be an owner-occupied couple. So look, if that all happened, and I have no reason to believe it hasn't, since this came from the FIFH as a referral, she did these things. Now, I talked about this, and you'll hear it on the weekly report, because if we just apply, Mark, here, a little old-fashioned Sherlock Holmesian deduction, why are you claiming to have or buying a property in Virginia as a primary residence unless you have some kind of long-term plans to be living in the Virginia, which where this is basically the suburbs to Washington, D.C., right? Most of these people who work in D.C. live right over the line into Virginia, because D.C. is not that large, and it's the special thing it is. And nobody really wants to live in D.C. It's not a very nice, safe place. So I think that that's very telltale of maybe some long-term goals that Letitia might be having. Geez, maybe I'll get a piece of property because I intend to be a senator or congressperson or something. I would have thought she might have had her eye on the governor's seat first, but we'll see what happens with that. But this is not lawfare, guys. And I know this is how the left, when they do start spinning it, that's what you're going to hear. This is payback. You can't pay back if there's been no law broken. And these crimes have been committed based on everything that has come out so far. And just because the news doesn't cover it doesn't mean that she's not going to end up getting charged. At the very least, I think she should probably will end up out having to step down. But who knows? It's New York, right? They're okay with looking the other way when you have the right letter next to her name, folks. But she shouldn't be able to practice law. Her law license should be either suspended or revoked, even if it's temporary, because as a lawyer and in the job she holds, she's an officer of the court. And she's taken oaths, and one of it is you're not supposed to be breaking the law. She's committed white-collar crime. She's committed fraud. And they're looking at it for mail fraud, wire fraud. She's got a plate full of nasty there. And it's her doing. And it happened. And there's no statute of limitations. These things happen in 2023, well within. Now, the thing with the father is, or the father is the husband, I guess that goes back quite a way, probably expired. But that's okay. There's plenty right there. 508-871-7000. Thank you for the call, Mark. 508-871-7000. I got to touch a little bit on this. Kilmar Armando Alberego Garcia, MS-13 gang ties. This, and we got this state senator going down. Look, this is crazy. For the record, because it doesn't seem like a bunch of these idiots out there asking to bring him back don't realize he's not actually a citizen. He is home. He's El Salvadorian. He's in El Salvador. He entered the country illegally. Even if he was Ward Cleaver and living this beautiful suburban life, he still was here illegally. He still broke that law. He still wasn't a citizen. But of course, everything broke because she had, on top of all of the MS-13 human trafficking, now they dug up the reports. He's a wife beater, a bad wife beater. DOJ releases dossier confirming the MS-13 ties of deported Maryland man, as the media like to call him, a Maryland husband and father. The DOJ confirms the gang affiliation. And think about, I'm sure Cory Booker is so happy he didn't fly down to El Salvador with that jamoke of a senator. First of all, you're going to fly to another country, a sovereign nation, and tell them, hand me over one of your citizens from the prison. I'm going to take him back to America. I would be expecting that he'd be calling the White House to see if they can bail him out.
Exactly.
Okay.
What you said the other day, I mean, it's so stupid. He's going to go down there and be detained.
Yeah. Yeah. And he broadcast this. He live streamed the Van Hollen there, whatever his name is, live streaming this thing. It would have been if Kabuli there, Kelly, I guess Kubali or whatever his name is, the president, I would have had a security detail waiting for him when he got off the plane. And ask him, what is it exactly that you think you're going to do here in my country? But the Department of Justice released a very extensive dossier on Kilmar Armando Alberego Garcia, confirming his membership in the MS-13 gang, despite his legal denials. Remember, his argument was, you can't send me back because the rival gangs will take me out. You can only have a rival gang if you are in a gang, guys. This includes police interviews, immigration court rulings, and DHS records showing his verified gang status. So regardless of what the propaganda and the lying and gaslighting that the media usually does, folks, this is a bad hombre. Yeah.
Do fathers on the Atlantic shore all have restraining orders from their wives?
I hope not, but it seems like it might be a running or recurring theme among illegals. I don't know. Gilmore. Yes, that's true too. 2019, the Board of Immigration Appeals upheld a judge's ruling that Garcia is verified member of MS-13. Now, that process led to the order, by the way, of non-removal because the judge, in this case, really believed that the rival gang would take him out if he was returned. And a judge might feel that is by de facto death sentence. So, all right, you can't remove him because he says. Now, that was back many years. A lot of things happened in the 7 years since that was done. And the court noted that his gang affiliation made him a danger to people and property, and that justified deportation. So, gang symbolism in field interviews, right? This is a bunch of material in this dossier. In 2019, in a police stop, Garcia was wearing clothing with coded gang symbolism on it, including Chicago Bulls hat. What's the big deal, Joe? Well, actually, there's certain baseball caps, handkerchiefs or bandanas, you might call them, certain colors and where you wear them. They mean different things, and that's why the organized crime and gang intelligence units in major departments like Chicago, New York, Boston, etc., they keep track of this. They need to keep track of this. They have to understand who the players are on the board. So the intelligence divisions of the larger police departments have undercover agents infiltrating the street, not necessarily gangs, but living on the street, being part of the fabric of the street, because they need to understand this stuff. So the Chicago Bulls hat, which law enforcement identified as a known MS-13 signal, and that's how they get to tell each other apart too with certain things. Which means, by the way, you don't want to walk in certain neighborhoods wearing a Bulls cap if you don't understand you've just signaled something you probably might not have been wanting to project. So police cited a reliable confidential source stating that Garcia was an active member of the Western Clique with the rank of Chico and gang name Chile. So there's a track record of this. There's paperwork, there's intelligence. And you would think when the DOJ and immigration came out and did this thing that they know this stuff, but the media doesn't know it. They don't care. They're going to tell their own version and their own story on this. And Garcia entered the U.S. illegally in 2011. He was deported to El Salvador in March of 25. His deportation, the administration is arguing here, was valid given the danger that he posed, but was complicated by a legal technicality. And a lower court ordered Garcia returned to the Supreme Court because they wanted clarification. So this judge then ordered DHS to facilitate his return, sparking the DOJ's intent to appeal that ruling. But folks, we have to take our mid-show break here on the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000. Hey, folks, back in 2 and 10.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. We've got sunshine and highs in the 50s today. A couple spots expected to make it all the way up to 60 degrees. Now, it's not going to be quite as bright through the day tomorrow, but it's another nice one. We've got some increasing clouds, so we'll keep it partly sunny for Friday. Wake-up temperatures will be in the 30s, but we've got a high in the mid or even upper 60s. And then we're going to be back in the 70s for your Saturday plans. The only chance for rain really in the forecast coming up soon is going to be maybe Saturday evening, a spot shower. Other than that, looking dry. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central 830 WCRN.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. and after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Radio Central AM 830 WCRN, reminding you that you can join the conversation for the remainder of the hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Ted, I'm wearing a ball cap today. I got self-conscious about the fedora yesterday. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I thought you should be wearing a fedora, though.
I normally
I like
do.
the ball cap.
I do, yeah, but it's the WCRN ball cap, so it's very much in. Not that you can't tell by my background that this is WCRN, but it won't stop me from wearing the fedora.
Well, as my wife will tell you, I have trouble getting my head into any hat.
That's true. Sometimes it's just too big. And I want to finish my thought on this particular Garcia situation because the thing that broke yesterday that hadn't been out there is the domestic violence allegation, because newly released court filings reveal that this Jamoke, the wife, had previously sought domestic violence restraining order against him, and raising further red flags about, well, his character and threat level, frankly. El Salvadorian President Bukele, in a meeting with Trump, said he will not smuggle a terrorist into the U.S., a clear signal of disapproval of any forced return of Garcia. And I think it was CNN, because CNN asked this ridiculous question. And you could see the body language and the expression on Bukele's face, like looking at Trump. He even said to Trump, how come, do you have to deal with this all the time? And when Trump said, well, yeah, in my opinion, CNN hates America. And Nicole, what's the one? The one with the plastic face and stuff. She said, look, if you're CNN and you have to explain that CNN doesn't hate America, I think you're losing, right? The old adage, if you're explaining it, you're losing. And the fact that they thought that they had to do that, because most other networks don't have to tell their listeners or their viewers in this case, by the way, we really don't hate America. Just our actions and the way we cover the news may seem that way. That's all. So let's get this straight. An illegally present verified MS-13 member who poses a threat to public safety and has a domestic violence allegation is now the subject of a court fight to bring him back into the United States. Where is the common sense in this? And why are Democrats going to they are constantly, seems like they're taking that 10-20% position, and you say, well, why? It doesn't make any sense, especially when you were so silent on the brutal murders, rapes, and assaults that illegals have committed in this crime, and some of them in the same district we're talking about. And you know where I stand on the argument about, well, we have criminals here that do that. You absolutely are missing the point. We talk about protecting our borders, protecting our communities, and yet here's a federal judge essentially overriding both immigration law and public safety warnings to bring back a gang member where what ideology overrides reality. And let's not forget, the president of El Salvador, not exactly a soft on crime guy. El Salvador is a pretty safe country these days in comparison. Flat out told Trump, I'm not smuggling a terrorist into your country. That's how far out of touch parts of our judiciary are. This is crazy, folks. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go to the phones. Ken, thanks for holding on, man. What say you?
Hello, Joe. I think we have a first here. We have a double-sided poster boy. No matter which side you're on, he's your poster boy.
That's true, right? The Republicans, conservatives, this is the lunacy that the Biden administration has brought us to, and the left is saying, bring back the Maryland father, He's just and don't you love how they try to blur the line between citizen and illegal migrant, right? As if it doesn't exist. Because if you draw that comparison and distinction, your argument falls apart. But no matter how much you try this Orwellian doublespeak language, guys, it is what it is, Ken.
But you keep making the false assumption that they're looking for an argument to speak logically. Everything's emotion.
It is all emotion. And they expect that their feelings matter more than the law.
The other little thing to add to your outlining, you talked about his excuse back in 2019 of rival gangs.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Well, did you catch the news on the rival gang?
No. Oh, aren't they out of existence now?
There you go.
Yeah.
They don't even exist anymore.
Yeah. So the question, did they exist in 2018 when he used that argument?
See, the timing is what the news people won't, even left or right, don't connect it all up. Oh, I get it now. So they nail him in 2019. They have all the proof that he's MS-13. You described that. And then his lawyers come back with, but the gang thing. And you had some. So literally, you could have a judge say, oh, well, okay, for two reasons. One, El Salvador was the worst for crime in 2019 because this hearing was in October, and Bukele had just been elected 4 months earlier. So he hadn't had a chance really to have much of an impact. So, nobody wanted to go back to El Salvador, where now the people love to travel to El Salvador because it's the safest place anywhere in the Western Hemisphere.
Because they either left to come here or Bukele has put all the bad actors in the prison.
Bingo.
And that's a heck. Remember the Christy Noem standing in front of the 5-story bunk bed cell, which I still think was cruel punishment to make them all just stand there and look at the back of her while she did her news presser there. But nonetheless, it would have been an interesting night that night.
And so the other thing that changes the whole story. So here he was kind of on hold, and obviously if Biden gets elected, well, nothing's going to happen to him. Then Trump, upon inauguration, declares MS-13 a terrorist organization, thereby fitting the category of the Alien Enemies Act and led to the sequence of events. So people are describing the story in the past that doesn't tie to the current, and then they take the two key words, administrative error, and they go, wow.
Oh, they run with that.
Everything's wrong about this.
But did you hear Miller? Miller put that to bed in front of the White House on a press thing where he just doubled down and basically said most of what I just said. He's illegally here. He's not a citizen. He's an MS-13 gang member. And just so, it may be whatever happened on the paperwork. It doesn't change the facts that he doesn't belong in the country. And when they say bring this man home, guys, he is home. He is not an American citizen. Crazy.
I'm so curious. My last little piece of the story, I'm curious, is what did that refer to, the two words administrative error? I think I heard from one source that it literally was as simple as there were 3 planes. He was put on one of the first 2, and he was intended to be on the 3rd. So I think this
I didn't even realize it was that simple type of thing. Yeah.
So I think this was a stunt of Boasberg's. He basically scoured through every transcript that the DOJ gave him. He picked out those 2 words and ran wild with it.
Yeah.
And it was as simple as, I thought he was somebody I should have been able to pull back because he hadn't left.
Yeah, that's making sense now. You're right, because he was already airborne and out of international or out of the America's airspace by the time that came down.
The administrative error is he was already out of airspace. We thought he was going to be on the 3rd plane. He was actually on one of the first 2. But I'm not sure.
And Ken, we don't know if he was really on that plane. They could have just said, he went on the first plane. Sorry.
Yeah, and Miller is basically saying, hey, the guy who did that was a screw up. He's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. But the other thing is too, because I want to go back to when Trump. See, this is a example because I don't know what day this week I had talked about how the left is trying to filter the powers of the offices depending on who holds them. And this is a perfect example, is they're very frustrated that the president has the ability to make that distinction and determine some like this gang to be a terrorist organization, because it throws their whole argument out. Because now if they're, and we've talked about this, guys, on the show, where I said, well, once they're declared, if he does this to some of the cartels, the rules of engagement change. If they are listed by our government and by our State Department as terrorist organizations, then how we track them down, how we bring them to justice, it changes. And it takes it out of the civilian court or normal criminal courts. It's a whole different thing. So the left is very frustrated that Trump used that, which he has every right to. It's one of the powers of the office that he holds. But the left wants to filter and pull back the powers of these from the Secretary of State. They want to do it to Marco Rubio. They want to do it to Donald Trump, and I'm sure Kash Patel and Pam Bondi for that matter. But they can't. All the powers of the office goes to whoever holds the office. And you can't, limit because it's Trump, but we don't like him, we're going to take these powers away. He can't make those things. But when the Democratic president is, they can do that, though. Ted, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, it's kind of rich coming from these people who backed Biden's lack of attention of American citizens entrapped in foreign countries, people who are entitled to due process.
Yeah. And look at the number of people. Ken, do you know the head count? It's a ridiculous number that Trump got back. People who were being held either as hostages or political prisoners or just for leverage. He's brought back, I think the count's like 40 at this point. Don't hold me to it. We have to look it up. But
yeah, I haven't followed
what the hell was happening in the 4 years Biden was president? He wasn't even bringing the astronauts back. Never mind someone on a bogus charge in Russia.
Yeah, he was lost in space.
So he got it.
No, he was too busy on the beach.
Trying to pick up the chair. Final thought before I have to break for the break.
Oh, we got so many more days of this. I just love it.
Yeah.
It's just a big question as to how the law is going to deal with this. Supreme Court, you're going to straighten this mess up?
They're going to, thank you for the call, Ken. Appreciate it. They have to deal with this. They're going to have to deal eventually with biological men and female sports. That's another one. We have that 5 justice court in England, make it definitive. So we got the fourth and final segment coming up, folks. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000. Back in 2 and 10.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own, but MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Having trouble with your cell phone? You need to visit Wireless World at 757 Grafton Street in Worcester. They fix any device, including cell phones, tablets, and computers, as well as game systems. Before you buy or replace it, bring it to Wireless World at 757 Grafton Street in Worcester. Need or want a new phone? You won't believe the prices at Wireless World, 757 Grafton Street in Worcester. Before you buy new or replace your current phone, check out Wireless World, 757 Grafton Street. That's Route 122 in Worcester.
Kohler Park is the place to play, so treat yourself to a private suite at the best ballpark in AAA. Suite rentals are the best way to enjoy a fully catered and climate-controlled experience at the park. Whether you choose to watch the game from inside of the suite or out in your seats, it's the ultimate experience for a special occasion. Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888 to reserve your suite today.
All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. From the center of the dial, the center of information, and the center of New England, we are AM 830 WCRN in Worcester. And you can also use the text line at 617-297-8388. So just getting a little bit on, I'm going to go into this Judge Boasberg thing a little more, because he finds probable cause to hold officials in the criminal contempt for deporting Venezuelan migrants. Woo! And again, you're talking about the sovereignty of the nation. You're talking about people who aren't citizens. You're talking about, in his brain, for some reason, he thinks his authority reaches into another sovereign nation. I don't know how he gets there, because arrogance is an incredibly interesting tool here. But key points for this is this isn't about, upholding the law. This is political move dressed up in a black robe. The judge claims Trump officials willfully disobeyed an oral order, but the written order never said to turn planes around. And I'm not sure he can order a plane, especially in international space, to even be turned around. That is always up to the captain, by the way.
There's only one commander-in-chief of our military.
Yeah.
And that's the only person who can turn planes around.
That's the other thing. He doesn't, his orders, if it was I'm assuming this would have been ICE that would have been flying there and control the planes. It might have been a military flight. It's a good point. I don't know, but maybe somebody can tell us. 508-871-7000. But here's the question on the oral versus written orders. If the law is to be followed, it should be clear and consistent, not vague or even retroactive. Nothing should be retroactive that way. So this is about who governs, to Ted's point. The elected executive branch or unelected lifetime appointed judges, whose orders are to be followed here. The Trump administration was enforcing immigration law, part of the job of the president. And he used the Alien Enemies Act, a very legal tool available to the executive branch, regardless of who holds the office. Back to the point here that it's clearly, and there's even been legislation that's been presented by Democrats to roll back the authority of the presidency, which I'm sure the founding fathers would have a problem with that. This criminal contempt threat sets a dangerous precedent. Judges prosecuting presidents over policy differences. My God, for the last time, stay in your lane. The administration deported suspected Venezuelan gang members to Nicaragua before courts could block it. The judge says the White House should have waited. But waited for what? Waited for more victims? These people are accused of violent criminals. They are violent criminals accused of violent crimes, not innocent tourists looking for Disney passes. And what about this one in was it Colorado? These animals took a drill to an old lady's hand and tortured her for her PIN numbers and bank account numbers. This is on American soil, folks, in a citizen's home. So what is the real outrage here? Is the media and court concerned about gang members being sent home, or the optics of the process? El Salvador prisons, they're not Club Med. They are very nasty places. And I think that's supposed to be part of it. Prison is supposed to be somewhere you do not want to go. But maybe that's the point. Deterrence matters. So are we protecting Americans, or are we just protecting narrative and virtual signaling? Selective enforcement is hypocrisy, guys. And let's remember, Democratic-led administrations have ignored court orders before. Joe Biden said straight out when the court said, hey, you can't do this forgiveness of these student loans. You're a branch of the government, doesn't control the purse. You can't assign taxpayer money to something like this. The office can't do it. No one was saying, well, yeah, the office of the president can do that, but we don't think Joe Biden should be able to. No, it was speaking to the powers within the office that Biden happened to hold at that time. So they have ignored these, but you won't see criminal contempt charges flying then. In Bosberg's language, the Constitution does not tolerate willful disobedience. Might apply better to sanctuary cities or open border policies. And if you listen to this show, you know that this whole idea of sanctuary cities is just a joke to me, because there's no mechanism to do that. You can't, it's like voting, you're just making this declaration that has no teeth to it. It doesn't negate the federal law. It doesn't negate immigration law. It doesn't suspend our sovereign border. So what is it that you're doing? Your arrogance is so ingrained in you that you can pick and choose the laws that you're going to follow, because the rest of us don't get to do that. The Biden White House brought Rachel Warren's murder into this. Her killer, an illegal immigrant gang member. When we delay deportations, American citizens pay the price. These aren't abstract legal arguments, guys. They're life and death policies with real world consequences. This contempt charge could chill future presidents from acting quickly to protect the country. Judges should interpret law. That's what they sit there for. And only if it's brought by people with standing or parties with standing to do so. The judiciary can't reach into a situation and stop messing with it. Somebody with standing needs to bring that before the court, and only the court then can look at the constitutionality of it. They're not there to run foreign policy or immigration enforcement, not their role. The public sees through this. It's lawfare and not law and order is the bottom line on that. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000. The other thing, and I made reference in my opening, this guy Nate Silver, I don't know if you even know who he is or care who he is, but some on the left take him as a good number cruncher, that kind of guy. And AOC, according to him, is the future of the Democratic Party. So this election forecaster, Silver, that Nate Silver, is now saying that AOC, Cortez, is the Democrats' most likely lead in the 2028 ticket. And let that sink in for a moment. According to polling and pundits, AOC may be the face of the Democratic Party in 2028. Now, Nate Silver and Galen Drake, both former 538 analysts, and 538 has been a very prominent pollster and consultant in races for a while now, hosted a 2028 Dem primary draft, and AOC was the first overall pick. I don't even think Newsom made the first page, by the way. But what does it say when the front runner for president on the left built her brand on socialism, identity politics, and anti-capitalist rants? And just to Ted's point earlier, the Amazon situation, that was done because she was just ignorant of the facts and the repercussions, and she just doesn't understand how business even works. Ted, you wanted to add something?
She just doesn't understand, period.
Yeah.
And did you ever see the interview where they were asking her about the Middle East, and she just shrugs her shoulders? I'm not an expert in.
She tried to bull at first. And one follow, I love the follow-up question, man, because that is where most arguments on the left fall apart, right? With the follow-up question. But she had one follow-up question, and it was gibberish for a while. And then she just kind of said, yeah, I don't know. I got to make, laws and policies about this, but I don't know. But the interesting thing is the polls favor her. Well, let's say they favor her in the bubble. They do. A Yale University poll puts her net favorability among Democrats at plus 60 points. In politics, that's pretty good. So that shows you how out of touch the party base is with mainstream America. Sure, the polls, you want to add something?
Yeah, a poll, especially in this case, only represents the opinions of the people that you poll.
That's it. And that's the question you should always ask. That's the question I ask when I hear these polls. And even if I like the polls, I know sometimes when you like the polls, you don't want to ask too many questions about it. But you should ask, wait a minute, right? Who conducted the poll? Where did the pool of people come from? And how many registered what? How many Democrats? How many Republicans? How many unenrolled? And then the real key on the poll.
Some people just don't want to see how the sausage is made.
But the key of the poll, right, is how do you ask the question? Because what they say the poll said comes from the questions they asked. And how it's presented, how you frame the question can drastically change that person's answer. Because you might ask about something specific, but then when you rephrase the same question in more general, is this a good thing or bad thing? They say, well, no, that's stupid. But those are the elements that you need to know when you look at these polls. So sure, the polls well among the progressives, but does she stand a chance, say, in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin? Silver admits that she has the charisma and political savvy, calling her canny politician. But he also questions her electability. I do too. A real problem for Democrats, right? Democrats want to appeal beyond college campuses and, of course, Twitter. They have to. Is she the new Bernie Sanders or the next George McGovern? AOC's been traveling the country with Bernie, a tour literally named the Fighting Oligarchy Tour. So much for the moderate wing of the party, folks. This is open rebellion from the far left base. Imagine a ticket where socialism isn't the subtext, it's the platform. So what do we have to do to win, woke or win? If AOC runs, the party will be forced to choose between woke revolution and real world credibility. All right, folks, that's going to wrap up the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Hey, the Carr brothers at 1 o'clock tomorrow. Have a fantastic weekend. I'll actually be sitting in for Mike Wade Saturday, by the way, Ted. So I'll be back Saturday morning, folks. Joe out.